Today, we will spend time with our informational text that we had previously been working on. We are going to use the text Togo and the last great race to compare and contrast mushers and sled dogs. We're first going to watch a video on the Iditarod.
The Last Great Race, the classic story of man versus nature.
But how does the Iditarod Trail sled dog race actually work? How long does it take to finish? What do they keep on that sled? And most importantly, why not just drive? Hi, this is me, Eric Ketto. I don't know much about Alaska. In January 2015, I packed up my car, left the lower 48, and drove through Canada to my new home. Now, I work with this guy.
Lower 48, already speaking like a true Alaskan. I'm John Norris. I've lived in Alaska for the majority of my life. I've survived the frigid conditions, I've gathered my own food, and I've tamed the local wildlife. I'm basically Davy Crockett meets Bear Grylls. Very knowledgeable about the 49th state.
Okay, so John, tell me about the Iditarod. How did it start?
Just hold on one second. In the winter of 1925, there was an epidemic in Nome. They had to figure out a way to get a bunch of medicine from Anchorage to Nome, and apparently there were only 2 planes in the entire state, and neither one of them could be flown in winter. So the governor of Alaska at the time decided they had to have the medicine mushed to Nome.
Is mushed a verb?
The medicine was sent 298 miles by train and then mushed the rest of the way by dog team. But here's the thing. It was a relay, and they actually passed the medicine from dog team to dog team, and no team ran more than 100 miles.
Yeah, apparently the modern race isn't really based on that original run. It's more of an homage to mushing in general, because now the teams travel over 1,000 miles.
Almost the equivalent of New York to Orlando. So for the most part, it takes place in the Alaska backcountry. But you can watch a ceremonial start of the race in beautiful downtown Anchorage, Alaska. Not a lot of race drama as it's purely for show, but you can get close enough to feel that hot sled dog breath on your face.
After the ceremonial start comes the official start, which they had to move further north this year because there wasn't enough snow.
Correct. For only the second time in the history of the race, they moved the official start to Fairbanks. And just like everybody else, those dogs are going to be really excited to get out of Fairbanks.
So there are 79 teams this year.
Right, and each team is made up of about 12 to 16 dogs and 1 musher.
And each team of dogs is pulling about 350 pounds, right?
Yeah, and these dogs are basically the Michael Phelps of the animal kingdom. They're consuming about 10,000 calories a day during the race. So of course they can't carry all that food, so course officials drop supply bags at checkpoints throughout the entire race.
After the 1,000 miles and tons of dog food, they end up in Nome.
Yep, and the record for the fastest time was set in 2014 by Dallas Seavey, 8 days, 13 hours, 4 minutes, and 19 seconds.
What do they get for all that effort?
They get a new truck and some cash that probably just about covers all the dog food.
Huh. Well, where do we go from here, John?
I would suggest you just keep refreshing alaskapublic.org for race updates.
Today, we will compare sled dogs to mushers. I want us to think about what are their similarities, what are their differences, and how do they show perseverance. We are going to be using the text that we have previously read called Togo. We are also going to be using the last great race as well. In addition to that, we will be using the graphic organizer on perseverance. So you are going to be using this graphic organizer You are going to be using this graphic organizer, and you will be explaining how mushers and sled dogs show perseverance. So you're going to put your answer. So you'll start out by saying, in a complete sentence, mushers and sled dogs show perseverance by. So you will be having to look back into the text to talk about how mushers and dog sleds show perseverance. Then you will have to determine three different sources of evidence that show that from the text. And then you'll do a conclusion. So going back to Togo and the last great race, we have to find, how do mushers and sled dogs show perseverance? Well, one example that sled dogs and mushers show perseverance by having mushers have to lead their sled dog teams through harsh conditions, and the lead sled dog also has to do the same. If we look into the text, we can see that, and go back and reread this third paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph. On January 31st, when the team had traveled over 150 miles, they met another team who had the serum. So Paula took the serum and turned his team around to head back towards Nome. Unfortunately, the fastest way home was over the dangerous ice of Norton Sound that they had just crossed. The conditions were so bad, Sapala couldn't see at times and had to put all his trust in Togo. In places, the route they had traveled on had disappeared. It was up to Togo to keep the team and the serum safe. So during harsh conditions, when the weather is bad, both the musher and the dog has to show perseverance. Remember, perseverance is not giving up. So an example of Togo showing perseverance was when he was having to cross Norton Sound. The conditions were so bad, Sapala couldn't see at times and had to put all his trust in Togo. So what we would do is we would go back to our graphic organizer, and I might say, I would put my evidence, what I had just found in the text. My source would be Togo, and my evidence would be, if I go back into my text, I can see we had said that Sapala and Togo had to cross the weather was bad and the musher could not see, so he had to trust Togo over the ice. So that would be one source of evidence to show why I thought that mushers and sled dogs have to show perseverance. And they have to show perseverance because one of the, in Alaska, the conditions are so tough. They're hard. The weather's bad. They have to put their faith in each other and not give up. So your job is to put two more sources, go back into the text and find two more places that mushers and sled dogs show perseverance. write it on your graphic organizer. And then finally, you could say, in conclusion, sled dogs and mushers show perseverance by not giving up and traveling 1,100 miles to Nome. Go ahead and finish your graphic organizer in Shobi.